Hi everyone, welcome to Casual Watch Talk Sunday Social. Welcome to the panel. Welcome to everyone in the chat. Well, before we kick off what should be a pretty interesting show, probably about a lively discussion, should we do a wristwatch check? Patrick Pocket Watch, you're in the I've got first of two Patricks, you are in the hot seat.
I'm going to say, Sam, I'm feeling a little bit slighted here. Why are the Patricks on the bottom? So is there something against Patricks? But
come on, guys.
Today
it's like a promotion.
Today I'm wearing a very unworn watch. I'm wearing my Sky Dweller.
Ooh,
so
okay.
Poor Sky Dweller never gets any love. So I'm debating getting some kind of rubber strap or something to sort of de-dressify it, because I'm just not dressy, so I never wear it, and that kind of makes me feel bad. So
can you get Oyster Flex for it or not?
I mean, here's where the rub is with that. Rubber Bee makes a strap, but they make you use like your Rolex clasp, or I guess you could buy another one. I just want a stupid Tang buckle. Like, I don't want to use this on a fake strap. So, if it's real, let it be real. If it's fake, I don't want to have Rolex branding pretending that it's fake or real on the bottom. So I like their strap, but I don't like their buckle. And if I can find the perfect combo, I guess I'll try it.
Yeah, I've got Rubber Bee for my date just, and it has a Tang on it, but I think, Patrick from Christopher Ward, welcome to the show. First time caller.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. My first live stream, so do go easy on me. I'm off duty Sunday night here in the UK, so I'm just here for watches today. But I'm wearing a C65, the Cranwell, the sort of RAF inspired piece. On a NATO, and we don't sell it on a NATO at the moment, to be fair, which I think we should, because it really goes well. It's pretty is tool-tastic a word? Because I know you guys use it, but I kind of feel silly saying that.
If we haven't got it on a merch T-shirt, it's not a word.
But no, I really like this thing. And then wrist 2, because it's still January. I'm on the fitness kick with my Fitbit, so.
Oh, nice.
I wanted a smartwatch, but Adrian Bushman, one of our designers, has this amazing brand Sequent. And he came in, he was in the office last week, and came over and we were having a really great conversation about the acquisition of Universal Genève, and we were sort of trying to guess what's coming. And then all of a sudden he just paused and was stone cold with me for sort of 10 seconds, which was really unnerving. He just pointed at my wrist and said, "What is that?" And I showed him, and I was pretty gutted because Sequent is they're kind of analog watches for those who haven't seen them, but they've got a lot of the smart features that you get from a Fitbit. But my thought was I wanted something that doesn't look anything like a watch, because I'm not one of these guys that can dual wrist and hold my head up high. So I just wanted something that looks like a wristband, and that's why I went with this, much to his disgust. But
yeah, and well, welcome to the show, and thank you for being the reason that I now have to put Container's product placement at the top of the live stream.
Contains Patrick placement, yeah.
Mark, what are you wearing?
Well, totally coincidentally, believe it or not, this is the Christopher Ward C60 Tide, which I bought in the January sale last year. So it was a nearly new watch, and it's arrived in perfect condition, and I'm still enjoying it.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Thomas, what's on your wrist?
I've been vintage today. I'm wearing my vintage Seamaster 1950 Seamaster.
Nice.
On a bead to rice bracelet with the Explorer dial. One I inherited 25 years ago. So started me seriously off in watches. This one.
Oh, very nice.
So started me seriously in my watch collecting journey. So
cool.
Nice.
Yeah,
very nice. Well, seeing that you're wearing a dress watch, coincidentally, so am I. I'm wearing the new GShock range man. This is the real reason I have to say contains product placement, because this was kind of sent in by the team over at Casio. I said, can I review the new Rangeman? And they bequeathed me the bright yellow one, which is nice. They do a yellow and black one. This is a smart watch as well. So Patrick, you're also not the only one wearing a smartish watch. So I've been wearing it yesterday.
So you're saying that has a heart rate monitor and all sorts of things on it.
Yeah, it does. It has the ABC. It has the range man, the ABC sensors, and then it has a heart rate monitor on it as well. It also has GPS built into the watch itself.
Wow.
Around some a very strenuous day around some theme parks yesterday, so watch out for the review this week. You'll see a bit of the.
I don't want to spoil the review, Sam, but how long does it the battery last? You charge it? Or?
I haven't charged it once. I received it, I think, like Tuesday, and I've worn it off and on. Yesterday, I used the GPS almost most of the day. I did like 3 different walks with it, had it tracking me around, and it's only 2 bars. It came with one. It came with 1 bar depleted, and now it's only 2 bars depleted. So, it's not doing too bad. It is solar as well. But the last GShock R, smart GShock I had, the square one, that was a solar as well. But unlike the Garmin, like the Garmin will tell you when it receives a solar charge. It has a little graph, whereas the GShock, as far as I can find, it doesn't have a screen that allows you to show if it's actually charging from the solar. So I think you should just take up data. Okay. Well, this week, guys, keep your recommendations as well coming in the chat. This week, we're going to cover mistakes to avoid for new watch collectors, or also maybe watch collecting tips from people that have been collecting watches for a while. So we've each got a few. I've got a few on my list, but does anybody want to go first? So I'll tell you what, we'll start, Patrick, Pocket Watch Time. We'll start with you. What is your a mistakes to avoid or advice that you'd give to a new watch collector?
Well, I'm just sad that I didn't make notes or have any plans. I just so I'm gonna off the cuff. But the easiest first mistake that I would say is, and it's kind of a big one, don't fall for hype. So if somebody else likes the watch and you don't like the watch, 100%. Just stick to your guns. I mean, I'll use the classic example of me and the Omega Speedmaster. I forget, someone made a video about one like the last weeks, and I made a comment. It might have been Federico, and he was like, "What's the best one?" And I said, "None. I just don't like it." And of course, I got some hate in the comments, but it's just, that watch inspires me not a bit in terms of the moon mission, the looks of it. I mean, I just find it a boring chronograph, and it doesn't mean that I don't think you can have it. If you like it, go for it. But I think when you first get into the hobby, and let's say if it's old school, just like the days of Archie Luxury, where he said, you need to have a Rolex, you need to have a moon watch, you need to have a JLC Reverso. Like, he made rules where I truly think people said, okay, yeah, I got to do that. And then you get a watch that you just don't like. And eventually you're going to flip it, and you're probably going to lose some money on it. And, that sort of sours your entire flavor for this watch hobby. So my easiest one to just be, make up your own mind. If you like it, buy it. If you don't like it, don't buy it. And listen to all of these great, fine reviewers out here to get information on a watch. But if you still just don't like it, stick to your guns and buy what you like.
Yeah, I've got different variations of that same thing, but this is the key one, isn't it? I think you started off with probably one of the best ones is buy what you like the look of.
First rule, buy what you love and love what you buy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's a really good one. I think you started off with perhaps one of the best ones there, but
I stole the show.
He stole the show.
Yeah, okay, we're done. Bye all.
Done. Well, funnily enough that you mentioned the Speedmaster, because we also, as a panel, released a Speedmaster video, didn't we, last week? I sliced out Dave's great explanation of what he heard firsthand from the guy, James Reagan, who actually tested the Speedmasters. So we got a lot of comments in there in the comment section about how that wasn't the true story, which amazed me, because David obviously heard it firsthand off the guy who actually did test the Speedmaster. So I found that funny. But boy, I don't know whether I live like a sheltered life, but I wasn't so aware that there was quite so many people that believed that the moon landings didn't happen. And so I was telling a lot of people in the comments to behave themselves this week. So yeah, that was quite a lively comment discussion on that. But anyway, new Patrick.
New Patrick. That's how we should do it.
New Patrick.
New Patrick, I'll take that.
New Patrick, what is your like a regret or advice for a new collector or mistake to avoid?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm such a stalker on watches. I should preface this. Such a stalker on eBay, Chrono 24, all these
Patrick's
sites.
first and last day.
Yeah. But my first one for sure is buying stuff because it's cheap or because it's below market value or whatever. The amount of times I've seen not inexpensive watches either. In my budget's, say for a next watch is around £1,000, and I see one that's normally £800-900, and I see it for £6 or £5. I'm like, whoa, this is telling me to pick this up. And then I've done this, and I've got it, and it's come in, and I like it, but it's not, it's not the one, or not the one that I'm really kind of hunting down. So buying stuff because it's cheap, it feels really good at the time. You feel like you've got a real bargain. It's quite easy to explain yourself to people that you might have to explain yourself to, that it's such a good price. But I think I speak from experience, and I have a rule these days where I have to sit on it for a week. I'm not going to miss something on eBay for a week, and I'll sit on it, look at it every day, really think about it, watch reviews, and then go for it. So yeah, that would be my first one for sure.
Yeah, I think that was one I was thinking of. Should offers and discounts mislead you into buying?
Yeah, and some of the reasoning in my head is like, well, if it comes, I don't like it that much. I've got this new watch that's at, that I've got for a decent price. I can sell it on and make £50 or break even. But I'm sure you guys have sold a lot of watches, but it's a bit of a faff, isn't it? Listing and taking photos and answering questions.
It's very tough
it's a
now.
complete faff.
Yeah, very tough now.
And I hate to talk down on other brands, but I actually still own the last watch that I did this with, and I wouldn't want to talk about the brand, especially on a live stream like that. But it's still in my watch box, and I haven't worn it too often. So yeah, we'll just we'll leave that one there until. Well, actually, I'll use this platform. If anyone is in the market,
gently use the Zodiac. Oh, and not only that, but you can now get that Zodiac signed by Mike Pearson if he'll do it.
Well, there we go. Added value wherever you look.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is a really good one, and one that I like to think that I adhere to, but sometimes I definitely don't. Although I did resist the hype of the Swatch blind pan, the Swatch 50 Fathoms. I queued for a little bit, and then I was in the queue thinking, do I really want this, or am I just queuing for it? And then yeah, we went to Starbucks in the end. Not product placement. Mark, what is your advice from a well-tenured collector?
Well tenured. I'll have to think about what that means. But my advice for someone wanting to start a watch collection is don't. It's a financial black hole, and you'll never be happy because there's always one more watch you can buy. And there's other things I could say, but if you're happy with just one more watch, or just one watch, enjoy that watch. There's no need to have a collection at all.
Yeah,
this is a really good one, because I know from my own thing. I had a Speedmaster. It was my only luxury watch, and I think back on that time. I sold it in the end, but I'd look back on that time and think, wow, I didn't really. I quite liked that watch. And then suddenly when I started collecting and I realized it didn't have the date, and I really like dates on watches, I then poisoned my own mind against it. So I think this is a good one. It's like that person that, occasionally you meet people who are like, oh, I just go down to the pub and I have one drink in it, and then that's it. I'm good. Like, how? Not that I drink anymore, but that's probably prime reason why.
I was going to put this point across as well, Mark. Should you save for one big purchase, or test the water with lots of cheaper purchases?
Well, that's an interesting one. Watches don't have to be expensive. If you're happy with I'm trying to think of the term, but if you're happy with $100 watch, enjoy the $100 watch.
Yeah.
You don't, and I would generally say avoid saving up for one expensive watch, because try out, do you like actually wearing a watch? Will you wear a watch every day? And you can do that just as well with a with the Citizen you buy from H. Samuel or Zales or whatever, or you can go to an outlet mall and find, the first watch I bought in the US was Seiko Kinetic, and I got it for about $150, and I wore it for 5 years. So
Nice.
You don't have to start off expensive, and I would say if you can pick up that one watch that you really like, and it's $100, do it, because that's so much better than wanting a $15,000 Omega for a start.
Yeah.
My reflection is you enjoy each step so much more when when the next watch you buy and it's a slight upgrade or it's a slight part more expense is so much greater. Like, I started watch collecting when I was 14. Well, I had my first sort of watch that I researched when I was 14, and that was literally at the £100 Seiko 5 from the Hodinkee article, the black dial SNK something, and I wore that for a year and enjoyed it so much, and got to the point where I knew every feature about the watch. And then when I was looking at the next £150 watch or £170 watch, I could see feature by feature what the marginal gain, what the improvement was. And I've been into watches for about 8 years now, and going up that ladder is more pleasurable, I think, than just diving in and with a Submariner, because where do you go from there in terms of anything below that? You're going to pick it apart. So I think there's really value in climbing the ladder, if that's what you're into, as you say, Mark.
I
envy
must
the guys
admit,
that can just rock one watch.
There was that sort of adrenaline rush of fear when you go into a shop and buy your first luxury watch. So I had Seikos, I had Solar Citizens, and so on. And then I decided to step up and buy an Oris, and I was just like, am I frightened of going into somewhere and paying $1,500 for a watch? Yes, it's intimidating, but I didn't have to, and I still have that Oris. But you don't have to do it. You really don't, because once you take that step into the abyss, it is the abyss.
Yeah, and also I think as well, a lot of these watches that are now iconic for a reason, Rolex Submariner, Speedmaster, the CWC G10 that was issued to the British Navy, they're now very expensive. But when they had those iconic histories, they weren't that. They were affordable, weren't they, at the time? I mean, I can't imagine that Comex would have picked the Submariner if it was $12,000 and a 6-month waiting list to get everyone. Or like CWC wouldn't, the MOD wouldn't have picked CWC if they were, $350 for a quartz watch at the time. They were probably, less than £100, I imagine. So, but yeah, so it's weird how things have got a lot more expensive over time. Also, I feel really old now if Patrick was 14 when Hodinkee started.
I think it'd been going for a couple of years.
Oh, God, don't say that. Make it worse. So yeah, let's Thomas, what is one of yours?
I was going to say, choose your budget. Choose how much you've got to spend, or what's a comfortable amount to spend. You may have aspirations for the watch you've seen in the jeweler's window, the expensive watch, that people talk about. Don't let anybody sway you. Take advice and do research on social media or whatever, but don't be swayed by the crowd, like Patrick said. Decide what budget is comfortable for you. And then, like New Patrick said, and Mark said, start with something which is comfortable. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what your opinions are on maybe sort of delving into the micro brand field, or would you stick with a solid brand like a Casio or a Citizen or a Seiko? I don't know what the panel's opinions are on that. Would you, if you're scouring Kickstarter, or something like that, or would you delve into that, or would you? Do you think it's a safer option to?
I don't think a micro brand would be the place where I first start.
Yeah.
Because you want to go into a shop, you want to go in and say, buy it, maybe get a discount, but also have that confidence of saying I can send it back if it's broken.
Sure. So the micro brands, you
don't know which. And if you're going for a micro brand, you don't know how long the delivery time will be. You don't know if the watch will actually show up. So, even now, I think micro brands are for the experienced, and certainly Kickstarter is, because you sit there and say, "Oh, okay, so
I'm going to wait 4 months.
I'm going to wait 4 months," and then you keep following the campaign, and it's a year and 4 months.
Yeah,
that'll put you off watches forever, I think.
So that's the sort of thing that the more seasoned collector gets into after they've purchased a few watches.
I think that's the safest way. And there is something very special about walking out of a jeweler's with your first watch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you don't want to miss that.
Yeah, I'll throw a little bit of a dissension on that one, just because the buying experience, I'm a weirdo. It just doesn't mean as much to me. I mean, give me a free soda while I'm paying the bill for a watch. I don't get excited walking out with the bag. For me, it's really just the watch. So
yeah, but you've been doing it for a long time, Patrick.
True, but
even for me, the thriller's worn off. But
for Thomas's question about the micro brand, the only thing that, let's say, makes me like the micro brand is if they offer something special. And I think the funny part for me is, as I knock things around with my legs, the only micro brand I still own is my tungsten Lumtex, and it's only because they're tungsten. No one makes tungsten watches. And everything else about micro brands, no offense, micro brands, I don't know, they're usually homage. They're usually kind of taking some aspects of somebody else. Like, they don't usually have something that makes me say, like, ooh, that's so special, I want to keep it forever. And so I usually fall out of love with my micro brands. And, it doesn't mean that I can't fall in love with them. They just have to offer something that isn't on everybody else's watch. And
I've got rid of all mine.
Yeah, if a micro brand does that, I'm there. But if not, I wouldn't buy a micro brand.
Me too. I've gone through a phase of micro brands, and I've ended up consolidating them over the past month and just selling them, putting them on eBay. But another thing I thought was, should a lot of people maybe focus on one particular brand? And do you think that people get influenced by one particular brand and stick to it? Is that a good idea, do you think? Or should you broaden your horizon and really look at a lot of different brands?
I kind of fell into that at the start of my journey with Seiko, because I think they're a brand where when you are at the start and you've got a Seiko 5 and you look left and you look right, and if you want a racing chronograph, you can have one, or a hardcore dive watch or field watch, and they've got everything. But why, just to bring it back to micro brands, I feel like I should defend micro brands here. But for me, they're a second or a third watch, because I think from the first one, I'd like some sort of extrinsic value from the watch as well as just the thing itself. So having something like a Seiko, it's an enabler to go and learn more, because there's so much out there on Seiko. You can learn about the history, you can learn about the other stuff they make, you can look up the ladder, you can look wherever. So there's a lot of sort of scope. You're a part of it. You own a piece of the brand, and there's a lot of scope to learn. Whereas there's some incredible micro brands out there, but they just don't have that sort of those legs to go on and learn more about it and sort of fall into the hole. But then again, when you do come to the second or third watch, you're not going to get as much value from a Seiko, as we all know, as you would. If you want a spec monster for 300 or 400 pounds, you can't get that from Seiko. Whereas obviously you can go to many micro brands and get something really well spec'd. So I kind of think it's important to get in there with a brand that you can sort of branch out from and learn a bit about. But then I definitely think it's always, at some point along the way, seeing what that side of watches is with micro brands. Yeah.
It's a good point. And I suppose the other thing that could, I guess, to Pocket Watch Time, your point was that if you go to an event and meet the micro brand owner, if you went and met at Wind Up, you obviously had the bigger brands like Christopher Ward, Patrick was there, but there's also, you get to meet, like Veya was there, you get to meet them, you get to meet a lot of the actual creators. So I guess if it was if you went to an event and really warmed to the person and warmed to the style of the watch, then maybe that is your first watch. But yeah, sort of looking online and stuff like that, I also agree that a micro brand is when you start understanding, because the one that I had on my list here is don't always go for specs, because there's a lot of watches that offer a lot of good specifications, but they sometimes they're not able to tie the whole like design together, and so not necessarily just on paper looking at the specs. You really have to learn aesthetically if you like the watch as well, or maybe see one to see how it's built, because many micro brands offer a lot of, like, don't they, sapphire and other stuff.
And can I go back to Thomas's point about brands?
Yep.
You can fall in love with the brand, and a lot of people fall in love with Rolex and will never own one. But you can also use brand as a signpost for design or design language that you like. Should you stick with one brand? No, not necessarily. But if you say, well, I really like what Christopher Ward do, I really like what Rolex do, or Omega or whatever, you can use that brand as a signpost to say, I will be comfortable that I will most likely like a watch from that brand because I like their design. Now, it doesn't always work, and I've got 5 or 6, 7 or 8 brands in my collection now. So, but you can you shouldn't be afraid to brand shop, but remember that a brand may well be a signpost to a design language that you like.
Yeah.
I'd like to say hi to Abdul and Mad Watch Collector Russell, and just like to highlight Orange Hand's comment. He says, "Collect knowledge, and the watches are a bonus." I can't remember who we heard that say that, but it's good advice. Stuck with. Yeah, it's a good point, Orange Hand. Collect knowledge. Yeah.
I think Aaron's advice about getting a separate credit card was quite valuable too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and Russell, if you want to join, there's a space available. We can't wait to get you on the show. You need to make your debut. Awesome. Okay, so let's right. So I've got a couple of spicy ones here. My first one is I won't witter on about my loathing of homage watches that are so close to what they're supposed to be homaging that they're almost indistinguishable. But I think the point here, and it probably links in with Patrick's, is if you really like the look of a Rolex Submariner, like you like the Mercedes hands and everything, buying a watch that so closely looks like it, like Steinhardt or Pagani Designs or something like that, it might scratch your itch in the short term, but it is not that thing. It doesn't have the history, it doesn't have the romance, it doesn't have that original design, and especially the Submariner. There's a lot of things on the Submariner that were designed for purpose, like the bezel, the way you push the bezel down to get the sand out of it, if you've got sand in it, the way the clasps design, everything about it, Rolex designed for purpose. And all the other ones that are so close to the look of it are just copying that design. They aren't that thing. So I think that a lot, and I think I was guilty of it. When you first start out, you're like, oh God, that looks like it's a X on the cheap. But they really aren't that thing. They don't have, once you learn a lot more about the history of these watches, I don't think that they really scratch an itch temporarily, but I don't think for the long term. Which is one of the reasons I did.
I guess it kind of comes down to who you're buying it for. If you're buying it yourself and you truly just love that design and you wouldn't want to consider saving for it, it's a way of getting something like that. But if you're buying it that look, for other people to see that aesthetic on your wrist, it's always going to fall down. I see it like in the UK with Kia and Audi, we have a lot of S line or GT line cars. And it's like the Sportage, but it's got a little body kit on it because it looks like the faster one. And then if you look at the badge closely, it says GT line, and it's like the car's not, you know, as you said, with the purposes of all these specs on the Submariner, it hasn't got all these features that it looks like, you know, these air intakes aren't going anywhere sort of thing. But, you know, it's just for the look of it. And if you like that look and you want to drive a car that looks like that, then fine. But if you're buying it just to look like you're driving a Submariner or a Kia Sportage GT or whatever, that's the kind of the reason why I guess you're kind of tripping yourself up.
Yeah, I agree, and that doesn't go to the other thing as well. Is there is a lot of watches that are affordable that have a classic design, or they were the one of one that you can get. Citizen have a whole bunch. Seiko have a whole bunch of like original designs. Most watch brands have these a lot of original designs that they've created that have become iconic to them, and it's not all, you know, you don't necessarily have to spend a lot of money to get a watch that has an iconic, like the Casio calculator watch is like $25 or £25 or whatever, arguably one of the most iconic designs of the 80s of a watch. So I guess understand what you like, and unlike in Hollywood where you can fake it till you make it, I don't think you can quite buy a fake watch and think that you're getting the real thing, or certainly the history of design. Okay, well that was my well, actually, let's see if we've got any coming through through here. So
Jeremy Rice is a good one. He says his biggest piece of advice is wait. There are many watch brands, and let alone models. So just relax, don't rush. And see what's out. After a few months, you'll know what you want.
Yeah, also that I think that's true for watches when they first get released from Seiko, Citizen, and a few of the big brands. Like Seiko will release a limited edition, but it's they're not necessarily always limited, are they? You can usually get a deal on them afterwards, can't you? Especially some are definitely limited, but others are like limited edition 15,000 and they're readily available. So let's just go through these in order then. So Nick James says, go into stores and try stuff on. Don't make your decision based on videos and photos. Obviously, I can't.
Absolutely.
I'm an online reviewer, but it's not always possible, though, is it? Going back to the micro brands, next to impossible to try a micro brand on.
But that's a good point, because if a watch isn't comfortable, you won't wear it.
Exactly.
And the best way to find out if it's comfortable is to try it on.
Exactly. Yeah. And obviously a little plug for Christopher Ward that they'd offer that money back guarantee, don't you? The 60/60, is it?
Yep.
Yeah, 60/60. 60 months on the movement and 60 days to return quibble free if it's in new condition. But yeah, well, there's some crazy. I mean, obviously that is a criticism of Christopher Ward in some ways, that we go to these events and we're ramping up the events calendar this year, and obviously we have our showroom in Maidenhead, but not everyone can get there. But I've seen
Easton, not Mayfair. So if you've got a showroom in Mayfair, I've missed it. I think you mean Maidenhead. Yes,
sorry,
but you mean Maidenhead.
Yeah, of course. But I've seen guys and girls buy, like when we launched Pro 300 in 38, 40, and 42. Somebody bought all three sizes and got them in the US somewhere. They trusted that, the shipping process and returns process that much that it's as if it was an ASOS order. They bought this dive watch in all three sizes, tried them on themselves and then sent them back. And I don't condone that necessarily. It's a lot of paperwork for us, but I think you can get around it, especially once Chris Ford's pretty well set up in terms of shipping and things like that.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so some more comments here. Lewis says, I give watches away to friends that do not have one, in the hopes that they get hooked on collecting them.
Bad man, very bad man.
Very bad. Yeah, we had Orange Hand. Let's just see if there's anything else that came through. Okay, yeah, I would say that was Jeremy's biggest piece of advice is wait. That's an excellent one, and one that I am guilty of not adhering to. Yes. Okay. So
you have to wait.
Going back to homages, I mean, Abdul brings up a good point where he says, you saved a lot of money when he bought a homage Panerai to see if he'd like the case shape. and ended up not buying a Panerai and selling the homage. I mean,
Okay, so this okay, let's just we can chew on this one for a while, because it's not like back in the day with like Napster or whatever it was. It's like, oh, I'll listen to the track and see if I like it because I'll buy it. Because often a homage watch aesthetically might look like one, but I have never seen a homage Submariner, for example, that wears like an actual Submariner. And I can't imagine that there is a homage of a Panerai that wears the weight, the feel of the case, the machining of the case they might look the same, but I can't imagine that they wear the same. I think actually buying a homage of a watch to see whether you like it might
I think
not
you
be
get
the best way.
you get the size proportions feel, and you'll get the look feel, aesthetic feel. I think you'd be able to get some feeling of judgment over it.
I guess with the Submariner specifically, if you're looking for something that's as close as possible, it gets to a point where you're spending £1,000 on a Jeanneau, or well, not Jeanneau, you shouldn't say Jeanneau, on a on a really you can
Not
buy
a
a
sponsor,
£1,500
not product
Not a sponsor.
you could buy a £1,500 Submariner homage, and I guess this kind of where fake watches come into it. If you're looking for those as the same for the same thing, and you're spending, you could get a decent tag or a Christopher Ward or all these brands for £1,000, whereas you're spending all that money to see if something works for you. So I get it with £100 Invicta, say, to see if you like it, but then I agree with you, Sam. £100 Invicta is less than 1% of what a true Submariner is. So it is tricky.
Yeah, I think that, and I always think that's the ironic thing about the Invicta Pro Diver is arguably, if you're going to buy a homage of a Submariner, that is by far the best one to buy, because it's 70 quid or whatever, mechanical movement, even the bezel is actually the same. But yeah, about the other thing as well, though, about, because it's such an interesting point, Abdul. Thanks for actually putting that. It's such an interesting one, but also there is another element, isn't there, about wearing a branded watch, isn't there? And it's the feel. I remember I wasn't really into Breitling at all, but I bought a Breitling B1 and I wore it. And I just suddenly got like the vibe of, oh, now I understand why people like Breitling. And if you bought there must be a feeling, you must have that feeling with Panerai as well. You should, when you know that you're wearing a Panerai, you've got that sort of brand cachet. That there is a feeling to wearing a luxury watch, I think, or at least I get it. I mean, question to the panel: do you think that's right?
I get it, totally get it. I mean, when I went to buy my Panerai in 2011, it was the days of the Panerai hype, and when Panerai were the big thing. And I tried one on. It was 44mm. I'd never, I was used to a 40mm case. Never thought I'd wear a watch that big. But I bought one. I love it. I absolutely love it, and it does have a feeling of luxury. I mean, I'll admit that I made one of the biggest mistakes that you shouldn't make when I bought that watch, and I got a loan for it because it was so expensive. Now that's one thing you should never do. Never, ever, ever, ever borrow money to buy a watch that you can't afford.
I'm going to do solo layout. This is important, very important.
Ever, 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 ever borrow money, get a loan of any sort to buy a watch you cannot afford, because it's stupid. Stupid. Absolutely stupid. I did it to buy my Panerai, and it was the stupidest thing I did. It was. I regretted it at the time. I regretted it afterwards. But I've now got this watch, which I love. 10 years down, 12 years down the line, and I've got the memories of being a daft sod and borrowing money, and it's. But I love the watch, but it was a stupid thing to do. You should never. That's one thing, one mistake you should never make. Never borrow money for a watch you can't afford.
Yeah. I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, Mark, I get the sense that you buy what you like, don't you? I mean, I know you like Omega a lot, but I get the sense it's because you like the way they wear and stuff like that. You don't gravitate them towards them because of the brand name.
No, I mean, the first Omega, I think, was possibly influenced by the fact that my father wore an Omega whilst I was growing up, so I knew what the brand was. But then you still have to have a watch you like. And I like Omega design. But I'd like to go back to something that Thomas said, or that we've been talking about the feel of a luxury watch.
Yeah.
Don't forget that a luxury watch can be as uncomfortable as a cheap one.
That is true.
So
Grand Seiko for me, yeah.
I would love to own.
To name any brands, Mark?
Yeah, I say I would love to own a Bulgari Octo Finissimo, the really thin ones, but that case feels horrible on my wrist, and that bracelet, my wrists aren't that hairy, but that shaved every hair off my wrist in 2 minutes. It was just so uncomfortable. So I never bought one. I sit there and go, I would love to own an Octo Finissimo, but I can't because I can't wear the damn thing and they're painful. And wearing a watch that hurts means you won't wear it. I've almost sold watches that, I'd saved up for and said, this is my grail. And it was uncomfortable because I couldn't get the bracelet to fit. And then you find a way to make things fit if you want it. But don't buy a watch that's uncomfortable. And a luxury watch can be just as uncomfortable as a less expensive one.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been giving props to the Submariner, haven't I? But I know plenty of people who bought the Sea Dweller and they can't wear it. They love the watch, but it's just so heavy that I know one guy who bought one and he had to sell it in the end, even though he loved it.
And but I have my Seamaster chronograph, which is over half a pound of stainless steel on the wrist, and I just don't mind. But I understand that I am the exception to rather than the rule in that case.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to be different.
Yeah, exactly. So let's. Russell saying, so easy to say, but buy what you love. But it's nice to show off your watches to all your watch friends. You shouldn't buy for us, but it's sometimes not that easy. Be strong. No PRX.
I've said on here, talking about the Omega Snoopy, is that's a watch that watch nerds love, but your friends are going to look at you really weird down the pub when you try and show them that little animatronic on the back.
Yeah, and there's some really. I remember being at a watch event, and it was in when I lived in Southern California, and a lot of high end stuff, super rare Rolexes and everything. But the one guy that was getting the most attention was he'd managed to get that. I remember at the time when the Timex Pepsi GMT that they made, they sold out straight away and they were impossible to get a hold. Yeah, the Q, and they were impossible to get a hold of. He had one, and everyone was like crowding. Oh, show us your Timex. I think this is another thing is that another thing to know for new watch collectors is don't be if you see people online that have that are showing pictures of like expensive watches and stuff like that. More often than not, they are the biggest fans of all watches. I think, people who have Patrick Pocket Watch Time. You're a prime example of this, aren't you? You are a big watch lover, but you also have luxury watches. So I would say don't be afraid to interact with people thinking, oh, they won't be interested in my watch because they only collect high-end stuff. Oftentimes the people that are the most passionate watch collectors across the spectrum, I think, are the ones that have big collections of luxury ones as well. So don't be afraid to.
Even though mad watch collector might disagree, I mean, at work last week I saw a guy sitting in the waiting room and he had a PRX on, and in my head, I know, even though it's just a PRX, if a normal human spends $500 on a wristwatch, they must like watches. And so, I just said, hey, great PRX. You like watches? And he lit up from here to there. And he's like, oh, yeah. And, next thing you know, we're talking about watches for 15 minutes. And, that to me is what's fun about collecting. And, it doesn't have to be a $20,000 watch. No offense to the super rich jerks out there. I'm probably going to like the guy with the $500 PRX more than I am the guy with the 60 grand Platona. That guy will look at me like I'm a jerk if I say, "Hey, nice watch." He'll be like, "What about it?" Where the other guy's going to be cool. So
this is the other thing as well, isn't it? Like when you're out, I was thinking. Well, first point is, yeah, the when you see a lot of people wearing Rolexes, but you don't necessarily know whether they're watch fans. But the one $15 accessory that gives it away straight away is if you see anybody with a NATO strap on. I think or say NATO strap on their watch. I should complete that sentence before that gets fixed out by somebody. That is like the giveaway, isn't it? You see somebody with the Bond NATO strap on, you're like, oh, he knows. Yeah, he's a watch fan. I noticed it yesterday. I was out and about, and there was a guy with a NATO strap on his watch.
Yeah, the one that I remember from like almost a year ago, there was an older gentleman that came in, and he was wearing a Longa 1, and I so wanted to just be like, "Ooh, I like it," but I was busy, so I didn't have time, and I kind of regret it because he's probably an 80-year-old gentleman, and there's probably a really cool story about that watch, but I didn't get it.
Yeah.
Aaron's watch brings up an interesting point that you must take any luxury watches. I'm presuming secondhand he's talking about, to a legit watchmaker before purchasing, or just buy from an AD.
Is that right? That's easiest. Aaron, great point, and I really appreciate you all your support on these live streams. Very much appreciate it. But that's probably a bit easier said than done, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, I think
because Rolex won't authenticate a watch, will they? For you, I think perhaps the point is, if you really want to get into watches, make friends with a watchmaker, or or get onto a lot of forums and understand what you're buying first.
Well, that's certainly true for pre-owned, and we know that there are brands that are definitely faked more than others. Mm-hmm. If you're buying from an AD or a boutique, you've got that confidence. If you're buying your first watch, don't buy secondhand, because the chances of you getting ripped off are probably a lot higher. You might go, with the current interest in Universal Genève, you could buy a really ropey pole router because it's because you've now heard of the brand, not know that it can't be repaired because there ain't no spares for it, and probably find out it's fake too. So yeah.
I think it's same with these kind of third-party authenticity guarantees. We see eBay obviously last year dropped theirs, and I think pretty much any watch over $3,000 they'll stamp an authenticity guarantee on. And I was on eBay the other day and saw a Belcanto, and it had this big stamp, authenticity guarantee. And this, I don't know where the place is that they do this with the watches, but
I do.
He's never
Canton, Ohio.
Oh, do you? Okay.
In the US, yeah.
But if they see a Belcanto there, I mean, yes, I haven't seen a fake attempt yet. I think I look forward to the day where that comes through. But how and that's a Belcanto. How on earth are they going to know? They've never seen that particular reference of Cartier, or they've never seen a Universal Genève, as you're saying. Like how on earth are they going to know? But people that aren't aware of that will see something like an eBay authenticity guarantee and think, well, that's legit. There's no issues there. So especially after all the stuff we saw with Panerai and how good some of those fakes were.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's funny.
I'll just open up the box, take a look at it, and put the seal on it. I think.
Well, also they don't know if all the parts are legit, aren't they? I was chatting to an old work colleague of mine who sent me a picture of a Seiko 6139. I think it was maybe the John Player special looking one, and he said, "Oh, the guy wants this much money for it, but he's going to get it serviced." And but this is what he's going to sell it for after it's serviced. And I asked him if he could ask him who the guy who was going to get it serviced by, because there's probably like 10 people in the world, isn't there, that still service those old Seiko 6139 movements. I mean, Seiko don't do them, so it's that also is interesting, isn't it? Maybe that's another point for mistakes to avoid. Is Mark made the point about Universal Genève, but if you're wanting to collect vintage, make sure that either you understand what you're buying, or it's a vintage watch that uses a movement that can still be
Service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have a lot of knowledge and you're just starting out, the risks of buying vintage are much, much higher. You can get lucky, and a lot of people get lucky, but you're taking a risk, and you don't necessarily understand that the risk that you're doing so.
Yeah.
I think that's the point. Start with something new.
I've
It'll be better.
I've fallen down a rabbit hole. There's a particular vintage watch I'm looking for, and I'm not going to tell anybody, but I have seen so many Franken watches of this watch in my quick little search where, you know, it's the right dial, but it has the wrong case back. It's got the wrong crown. I mean, they know that the watch gets a little bit of a premium. So if they can make a watch out of some parts, they will. And, you know, they're completely not upfront telling you that. And it's scary.
Yeah. And this was a great point as well. eBay is very accurate. I get what they're saying, but I'm buying online. I trust eBay seal more than others. I think that as well, because they do. I trust the. I've had watches go through it, and it gives the buyer. I've sold that have gone through that, and it gives the buyer confidence as well. And they do have a guarantee, don't they, that if you've afterwards proved that it's not correct, they guarantee your money back or something.
Just gives my guarantee, but I don't believe that they take the case back off and look at the movement. I just believe that they take it out, see that it's all right, in good condition, it's the watch that it is, and then stick the sticker on it. I don't believe that they would actually take the case back off.
That's interesting, because I know that it's funny because they don't the sneaker one that they do, they are blasting that all over their social media, aren't they? That team that they have that actually assesses sneakers, whether they're. But you think they would almost, especially for going back to Rolex Submariner, those super fakes. The only way is the movement, isn't it? That you can tell. So I wonder.
Yeah.
And even now with the super fakes, they're starting to copy. You have to take them. You have to get quite deep into the movement to find out.
Mm-hmm.
Go back to the Submariner and also connecting to Orange Translator's comment. Make sure that you're buying a watch to wear and not for investment. Don't buy a watch to invest in or park your money in there. Buy a watch that you want to wear. It's no point just holding on to stuff you don't use just for ownership's sake.
Yeah,
to stash away or to hoping that it's going to go up in value. Buy a watch that you're going to wear.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? During the pandemic, when a lot of vintage watches became quite high value, didn't they? But they were ones that you wouldn't necessarily. Some of the Seiko 62 MAS was just a dive. It was one of the first dive watches, but it was just an ordinary dive watch at the time, wasn't it? It's like, I always think about that, like vintage toy collectors when they look for mint in box. I mean, what kid kept, Castle Grayskull in the box when they were, or anything like that? It's almost sad in a fact, isn't it? And you'd have to buy every watch. You'd have to buy every watch that was released in 1 year, like affordable watch that was released in 1 year. It would be like stocks and shares, wouldn't you? Some might go up, but then some might not. So you probably have to get more lucky, don't you? Obviously, you would just buy Rolex if you wanted the watches to go up, because no other really does it. But it would be very hit and miss, wouldn't it, if you were trying to see if just an obtainable watch would go up in value, like some of the Seikos went crazy, didn't they, during the pandemic? Some of the vintage Seikos.
I think there's one point that we've missed, and it follows on from what Tom said. Tom said don't buy a watch if credit or a loan is involved. I would say don't buy a watch if alcohol is involved.
That's how I got my first Speedmaster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't buy drunk. Don't browse.
Don't drink and browse.
Don't browse eBay at 2 o'clock in the morning, waiting for the hangover to kick in, because you will regret it. Yeah. Not just the morning after, but when that thing arrives and you go, "Oh my God, what did I do?"
Yeah, I had another point on here, which is don't if you're a new watch collector, I made this mistake, but it was dismissing quartz watches straight off, because there is some. It's funny because there is some amazing quartz watches, but even the worst quartz watch keeps better time than the best mechanical watch. So don't dismiss it straight away, because I think there's some really interesting innovation that happens in quartz movements, and they can be serviced as well. A lot of the high-end quartz movements. I think there's a lot of interesting things that happen in quartz technology as well. So you don't dismiss. I know I made that.
Well, the other thing is that you can say, well, I want to get into a watch. I don't know if I want to spend that money because I don't know if I want to wear it because I've got my Apple Watch or whatever. But you could, look at the price difference between a Tissot PRX quartz and automatic. You might decide, hey, I'm happy with the quartz, and that could be the start and end of your journey. So it's another way to let you get into watches without committing yourself too much.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's what made me go down the PRX fall pit for a short term. I mean, I'm probably not going to keep the PRX forever because it's not special enough, but I will risk 300, 350 and try it out. I wouldn't risk 1,000. And so, for me, PRX quartz, go for it. PRX automatic, not to mention the Powermatic 80. I wouldn't go down it at all. But I think for the 350 price tag, it's a very nice watch. And as Sam, you just said, it's probably more accurate than all of my expensive watches. So don't knock it.
Yeah. New Patrick, any more that you had on your list?
Yeah, I've got two sitting here. I think my most potent one is buying to fix. Especially, well, this is a mistake for me. It might not be a mistake for some viewers if you know what you're looking at. But buying to fix for me, I think, first came around with Seiko 5s and seeing some of these nicer references and rarer pieces that with bad movements or broken hands or whatever, and thinking in complete naivety as the armchair watchmaker that I am, that I'll sort that out and I can wear that. Yeah. And they come and go, and you end up selling spares and repairs. But a couple of years ago, I bought a quartz, a Tag Heuer, the professional 2000, whatever it's called, just the kind of 90s dive watch, the Tag Yuppie era poster boy watch, which I still love. And that had a bad movement. I don't know if the water had gotten in there or what, but I did what I thought was my research on that and found on Cousins the replacement movement for about £40 or something, and thought, well, I'll do this properly. I'll watch some videos and stuff, and still made a complete hash of it. And I sold that watch. I got it working just about, but hands were fouling on all sorts, and I ended up selling it as spares and repairs again because I just made such a hash of it. So buying to fix and not being someone that's competent with watches, even quartz watches.
Yeah, that is a really good one. I've definitely done that before. I've thought, I can fix this, or I can get the parts to replace that, and I've never been able to do it. The other thing, this made me think of something that I did very early on, which always goes totally wrong, is shortening a watch strap, either in its length that way or trying to reduce its lug width. If it's like a rubber strap, trying to shorten it, it never goes right. Or if you're trying to shorten like a 22 to a 20 mil, and you think, if I could just get a little scalpel knife or like a craft knife and shorten it, you're never able to ever make a watch strap shorter rubber watch strap or like a leather one look good, shortening it or reducing its width.
It's true. If you scroll back a few years on my Instagram, you'll see I wouldn't cut them, but I just squeezed them in to the point where they were unusable on a 22 mil because they're all bunched up, and then on the 20 they just got this little bubble in the leather. Ruined my £30 watch gecko strap.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said you had another one on your list.
Yeah, it's a tough one because I'm pretty much in the bowels of experiencing this at the moment, and that's kind of buying a brand and buying a watch to kind of get inside a brand and be part of that owners club, and then regretting it, going on to regret it. So it was my first kind of big purchase of what I look at as a serious watch, and it was a Rolex Oyster Perpetual, the 34mm from about 1970. And what's crazy about the Oyster Perpetuals, I think, from that period is how similar they are to current models in the look and the aesthetic. And I look at the catalogue and I see the Submariner from that period and the Daytona from that period, and they're so clearly vintage, and painted dials and pump pushers and all that. But the Oyster Perpetual, I've got it here actually, I can show you, is a normal person would look at it and think that might be a relatively modern watch.
Yeah.
I haven't done my manicure. So I did fall in love with it, and this wasn't a crush purchase that I didn't think about. I did sort of sit and think about it for a good few weeks, and I went with it. And as I say, I'm still kind of in this process with it, and I love it. It's my first Rolex. I love the Oyster bracelet. Love the case shape. That 70s Oyster case is brilliant. I've got 7 and a bit inch wrists and 34 mil with a cuff. It's great and works, but pretty much anything else, it looks a bit small. And then the other thing is, it's a bit of an old lady, really. It's got the acrylic crystal. It's a really great movement I learned a little bit about, but pretty rattly bracelet, hollow end links. Not much of a clasp. And when I think this was the most I'd spent by quite a lot on a watch, and I look at Black Bay Pros or a lot of the Christopher Ward catalog, or certain tags and Hamiltons, I just kind of think I could have bought something that I would have been able to wear every day for a month. I'm not worried about it. Whereas when that's on my wrist, that acrylic crystal, if I give that a big enough knock, it's gone. So I think maybe the lesson that I've learned is buying into a brand, or even just an aesthetic that you love, because that's kind of the stage where you can afford it, and not really considering the capability of what you're buying.
Yeah, that is a good point. I'm trying to think. I think one of the things that I find a lot of new collectors message me about are the Seamasters, the Seamaster dress watches, the original Omegas, because they seem to be still very accessible, don't they? But the abundance, I feel like you still have to be very careful with what you're buying. The original, the Omegas, the Omega Seamaster, that was essentially what you would consider a dress watch now, but back then it was obviously just a watch. And I see a lot of people thinking, am I going to get into Omega at an affordable? Although they're not that affordable now. There was a time when they were like $500 or something, but they're not that affordable now. And I've said to a friend of mine who has really big wrists, I said to him actually that's a flex. Like he's not into watches. I said, in the watch community, that's quite a flex, having big wrists. And I said, he was asking me about it. I said, you really probably have to try one on just to see how it wears. But yeah, so that's a great point.
Most of them are 34 mil as well, aren't they?
I would think so. Yeah.
They're so gorgeous. What size is yours, Thomas?
4 mil, 34. Yeah.
They're gorgeous. They're so gorgeous. I've stalked those for so long as well. The lugs are just incredible, aren't they?
Yeah.
Let's see if we've got any more chats coming through here. So Canadian Watch Monkey's got a new logo. I also have a new logo for the channel. A very big thank you to Peter over at Jack Mason, who did me a solid and redesigned the channel logo. So thanks, Peter. He said, last night I attended a friend's birthday party. 2 men were wearing nice watches. One was wearing a Tudor Black Bay GMT, and the other was wearing a GMT President watches. It really did help the conversation. And then he said he was wearing his Panerai, and then he said Rolex guys can be all right. Who knew?
Sometimes.
Yeah, it's that's true, isn't it? It's always good to. It's a good icebreaker as well, isn't it? I think people. I know there's a lot more people at work that have nice watches now that wouldn't really necessarily, unless you notice them, they wouldn't, just start a conversation about them. So that's because it's sometimes it can be quite an insular. If you're not like a YouTuber on live streams or whatever, and you're collecting watches, it can sometimes, I guess, be quite isolating. It's not like a hobby where you have to do it with other people, like racing a car or riding a skateboard or something or whatever. Shows what little I know about other hobbies that aren't watches now. Playing darts, you can't really do on your own, can you? or snooker or pool. Okay, let's see if there's any. Did anyone have any others before? I know we're near our hour now, but if anybody's got any last ones you want to get in under the wire.
The only one that was kind of hitting me was something that Thomas said, and it was about his collecting the one brand. And I'm going to kind of make a quick spin off of that because it's my most recent regret. And one, I don't think you should do the one brand thing. The god of watch YouTube, Tim Massa, made that mistake with JLC, and that didn't last him too long. But for me, when I did my State of the Collection video this year, I realized that I have like 2 of everything, and that kind of annoyed me a little bit because it doesn't mean that I don't like the watches that I have 2 of, but I feel like having 2, I'm sharing the love that I could put into something different. And even though the 2s that I have are, pretty darn rare and, exceptional in some way, it makes me really ponder, can I get rid of one of these and then have, that money to put into something completely new and different? So I guess sort of my newest regret is, buy what you love, obviously, but maybe just buy one of what you love and see if you can spread the love elsewhere.
Yeah, like Noah's Ark's watch box.
Yeah,
That's your new channel name.
exactly.
I have one as well. So at Dubai Watch Week, there was in Horology Forum, there was somebody who said that it's not a collection unless it has a theme, or a collection must have a theme. And I'm thinking that's pretentious nonsense right from the start. You should enjoy your watches. So I would call my collection doesn't really have a theme, but I would rather have my collection known as an enjoyment than have it that have that intellectual pretentious nonsense go on about it. It doesn't have to have a theme. All you have to do is enjoy the watch or watches that you have. That's all it needs.
Your theme is that they all tell the time, don't they, Mark?
And that I like them, yeah.
Yeah, my theme is that they all have to have the date. So that's about my limit. But I think also my theme is, and maybe this isn't the right way to go about it, is for some reason every watch that I like, I inherently think, could this be my only watch? It has to do everything. I wouldn't buy a dress watch because it doesn't serve all purposes. And maybe that's like a different way of going about it. So I've got this. I mean, this can't do it. This is. I couldn't wear this to a cocktail evening, but most of my other watches, I think I could. Even my Christopher Ward, the huge titanium one, still has an element that it could be worn in most situations.
And I think Orange Hand just had a really good point.
This is a great point.
Don't try to talk watches with normies.
Yeah. And also to the earlier point as well, is be careful when you approach people to talk about their watch situation you're in, because I've done it where some guy on a plane had a gold, like it was the real thing as well, gold AP chronograph. I was like, oh, nice watch, AP chronograph. And I think it like spooked him because most people, this is the other thing about watch collecting, isn't it? Nobody really outside of this sphere really is going to notice your watch.
Well, except for watch thieves here in the UK. Sam.
Oh yeah.
They know quite a lot.
God, I'd love to interview that Met officer that offered themselves up as tribute to go out wearing a nice watch. Wow, that was wild.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe that's somewhat, if you've got a gold AP chrono on your wrist, and maybe that's some of that initial hesitation when you hear someone identify it, that they know how much it costs, whereas a normal person could only guess, really.
Yeah, I saw somebody wearing that the Chopard. I keep forgetting the name. Is it the Alpine?
The integrated.
Yes, I saw one, but I was on one of those. I was in a in a airport, and it was one of those, the subways that takes you from. And I was like, should I say something? And then I was like, no, it's like a weird thing. So, yeah. Let's have a look. Let's just see if any comments came through. Yeah, Sam. Yeah, this is a great point. We discussed this at the start. Yeah, buy what you like. I think the whole theme of this upload, isn't it, is buy what you like. And then
I would say don't believe the hype, and I'd go into sympathy for the bezels comment. Buy watches that you can afford and that you like.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's a lot, isn't there, across the entire spectrum affordability that just solid watches that you can get in all price brackets.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And where can they see reviews on those watches, Sam?
Well, funny you should ask.
We can tell you're a professional, New Patrick.
Yes, thank you. Yes, like subscribe to Casual Watch Reviews. New channel design logo, thanks to the Peter over at Jack Mason, and also new members. Thank you to all the new members this week as well. I did my second members only video, so if you want to get some exclusive content, and I also made a bunch of videos members only, some of the back catalogue, few of the spicy ones. So thank you everyone for watching. Thank you to all the new members. Thank you to everyone that's been so active in the comment section tonight, and thank you to the panel. Thank you for joining me. And
thanks for having us on, Sam.
Yeah, we'll see you all next time on Casual Watch Talk.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.